Hello guys, this is Indian Medico and in this video we'll see a review of radiology. Before you watch this video, I'll suggest you to watch my radiology rapid revision video. In that video, I have included many images and it was basically a image based discussion. In this video, I'll discuss all the important points in radiology from the point of view of MCQ exams. I have not included any images in this video. Okay, first let us discuss the basics in X-ray. X-ray was invented by Roentgen. He discovered X-rays on 8th of November 1895. This day is celebrated as International Radiology Day. Now we have to remember the electromagnetic spectrum. From low frequency to high frequency, we have radio waves, microwaves, infrared waves, visible light, UV light, X-rays and gamma rays. Remember, this is from low frequency to high frequency. The electromagnetic wave with the highest frequency is gamma wave. Among these, X-rays and gamma waves are ionizing waves. It is also important to remember that alpha waves and beta waves are particulate radiation which are ionizing. Okay, now let us discuss some important abbreviations in radiology. PACS or PACS stands for Picture Archiving and Communication System. DICOM stands for Digital Imaging and Communications in Medicine. Though Roentgen is the father of radiology, we consider Charles Theodor Dotter as the father of interventional radiology. So these are some important points to remember in basics of X-ray. Now let us discuss about X-ray tube. Okay, in X-ray tube there are two types of X-ray tube. One is the classic X-ray tube and the other is the modern X-ray tube. Classic X-ray tube is made of glass, whereas modern X-ray tubes are made of stainless steel. In case of classic X-ray tube, both the anode and the cathode are made of tungsten, which has the symbol W. It is important to remember the atomic number of tungsten. It is 74. In case of modern X-ray tube, the cathode is made of an alloy of tungsten plus thorium. Tungsten plus thorium is cathode, and the anode is made of tungsten plus rhenium. Okay, in case of classic X-ray tube, the heat loss is by conduction, whereas in case of modern X-ray tube, the heat loss is by radiation. Now let us see about spectrum of X-rays. There are two things to remember. One is the continuous spectrum and the other is characteristic spectrum. Continuous spectrum is associated with Bremsstrahlung reaction. This is the reaction which we use in most of the X-rays, whereas characteristic spectrum is applied in mammography. Okay, we have to remember about two effects with respect to X-rays. One is the Compton effect and the other is photoelectric effect. Compton effect is associated with high energy X-rays. We have to try to minimize Compton effect as it causes image distortion. In case of photoelectric effect, we have to try to maximize the photoelectric effect. Remember, photoelectric effect is the reason for contrast. That is, it is the reason why we are able to differentiate bone and soft tissues in X-rays. So we have to try to maximize photoelectric effect, whereas we have to try to minimize Compton effect. Regarding X-ray film, the active ingredient of X-ray film includes silver bromide. So these are some important points regarding basics of X-rays. Now let us discuss various radiation units. For each radiation unit, we have a conventional unit and an SI unit. Okay, now let us discuss the various parameters which we measure in radiology. The first parameter which we measure is radiation exposure. The conventional unit is Roentgen, whereas the SI unit is Coulomb per kilogram. The next criteria we measure is absorbed dose. The conventional unit is Rad, whereas the SI unit is Gray. It is important to remember that 1 Gray is equal to 100 Rad. The next criteria which we measure is absorbed dose equivalent. The conventional unit is REM, which is radiation equivalent in man, and the SI unit is Sievert. The next criteria which we measure is radioactivity. The conventional unit is Curie, whereas the SI unit is becquerel. It is important to remember that 1 millicurie is equal to 37 megabecquerel. Okay, this Sievert is important. So there are various permissive limits. In pregnancy, the absorbed dose equivalent should be less than 1 millisievert. For general public, the absorbed dose equivalent should be less than 1 millisievert per year. Occupational absorbed dose equivalent should not exceed 20 millisievert per year. Fetal effects will arise in pregnancy if the absorbed dose equivalent is greater than 50 millisievert. So these values are very important to remember. Okay, now let us discuss the effects of radiation exposure. The most radiosensitive tissue is bone marrow, especially the hematopoietic stem cells. Among blood cells, the most radiosensitive blood cell is lymphocyte, and the least radiosensitive blood cell is the platelet and red blood cells. Gastrointestinal tract symptoms appear at a dose of 6 to 10 Gray. CNS symptoms appear at a dose of 20 Gray. There are two types of effects of radiation exposure. One is the deterministic effect. This is also known as non-stochastic effect, and the other is the stochastic effect. Stochastic effects are also known as chance effects. Under deterministic effects, we have skin effects and cataract, whereas under stochastic effects, we have mutations. So this is how we classify effects of radiation exposure. It is important to remember the recommended dose of cumulative radiation exposure in pregnancy is only 1 millisievert. So in pregnancy, the cumulative radiation exposure should not exceed 1 millisievert. Okay, now let us discuss basics in CT scan. Hounsfield is called as the father of CT. Spiral CT uses the principle of slip ring technology. It is important to remember about Hounsfield units. The least Hounsfield unit is for air, which has a Hounsfield unit of -1000. So it appears jet black in CT scan. For water, it is 0. It appears grey. For bone, it is +1000 Hounsfield unit, and it appears white. So these are the various important Hounsfield units to remember. It is also important to remember about CT room shielding. We use lead for this purpose, which has the symbol Pb. Now let us discuss basics in ultrasound. The two important principles in ultrasound are piezoelectricity and pulse echo principle. Sir Ian Donald popularized the use of ultrasound machine in obstetrics. The father of medical ultrasound, however, is John Wild. Okay, in ultrasound transducer, we use lead zirconate. Okay, now let us discuss the various modes of ultrasound. A mode is amplitude mode. It is used in ophthalmology. B mode is brightness mode. It is the most commonly used ultrasound in various diagnostic purposes. M mode is motion mode. We use this in echo. Doppler ultrasound is based on the principle of change in frequency of sound when there is relative motion between the emitter and the receiver of the sound. Okay, now some important named signs in ultrasound are comet tail sign, which is seen in gallbladder adenomyomatosis. Wall echo shadow sign, which is seen in chronic cholecystitis with cholelithiasis. Double barrel sign, which is seen in common bile duct obstruction. It is also important to remember about HIFU, that is high intensity focused ultrasound. It is actually a treatment modality used in fibroid. We should also know about ultrasound elastography. It is useful in breast biopsy and in liver cirrhosis as FibroScan. Now let us discuss basics in MRI. Lauterbur is called as the father of MRI. The magnetic strength in case of MRI is measured in a unit called Tesla. Routine MRI uses 1.5 Tesla. Okay, in MRI we have to remember about T1 weighted MRI and T2 weighted MRI. In T1 weighted MRI, grey matter appears grey, white matter appears white, CSF, that is water, appears black. In case of T2 weighted MRI, it is the exact opposite, that is grey matter appears white, white matter appears grey, and CSF appears white. There is something called as T2 flare MRI. In T2 flare MRI, the CSF is made to appear black. That is the only difference between T2 weighted MRI and T2 flare MRI. In case of MRI, the shield is a Faraday cage. It has copper. Remember, for shielding CT scan we use lead, whereas for MRI we use copper. Now let us discuss some important investigations of choice. For osteomyelitis, the investigation of choice is MRI. MRI is also the investigation of choice to visualize subcutaneous tissues and nerves. For acute head injury, the investigation of choice is NCCT brain. For acute head trauma, in order to visualize cortex of the bone, we use CT. whereas to visualize bone marrow we use MRI. Now let us discuss about contrast media. For contrast enhanced CT, intravenous pyelogram and angiography we use iodinated compounds containing iodine 127. For MRI, the contrast medium used is gadolinium. An important side effect of contrast media is contrast-induced nephropathy. Risk factors for contrast-induced nephropathy include chronic kidney disease, dehydration, diabetic nephropathy, and high osmolar agent. Contrast-induced nephropathy is basically a complement-mediated reaction where there will be tubular damage. We can prevent contrast-induced nephropathy by proper hydration. Levovist is a contrast medium used in USG, and gadobutrol is a contrast medium used for cardiac MRI. Now let us discuss about radiotherapy. Radioactivity was first discovered by Anthony Becquerel. The oldest isotope used in radiotherapy is radium-226. For therapy, we use phosphorus-32, which is a pure beta emitter, iodine-131, and rhenium-186, which emit both beta and gamma rays. For imaging, we use gallium-68. Now some important things to remember regarding the radiation components are: alpha rays have the maximum ionizing power and maximum damaging power. They also have the maximum molecular mass. Alpha rays are nothing but helium particles having 2 protons and 2 neutrons. Gamma rays have minimum ionizing power and minimum damaging power, whereas they have the maximum penetrating power. Remember, alpha rays have maximum ionizing power, whereas gamma rays have maximum penetrating power. Regarding cell sensitivity to radiation, the most radiosensitive phase of cell cycle is G to M junction, whereas the least radiosensitive phase is the S phase of cell cycle. Regarding radiation exposure, there are 2 types of radiation exposure. One is natural and the other is artificial. Natural radiation exposure occurs due to cosmic rays, whereas artificial radiation exposure can occur due to X-ray, CT, etc. We should know about the 5 R's of radiotherapy. They are radiosensitivity, repopulation, repair or recovery, reassortment, and reoxygenation. These are called as the 5 R's of radiotherapy. Now let us discuss about the types of radiotherapy. First is external beam radiotherapy. This is also known as teletherapy. In this case, radiotherapy is given from a distance and we most commonly use cobalt 60, which is CO60. We should also know about LINAC, which are linear accelerators. In this case, no radioactive source is used. Next is brachytherapy. In this case, the radiation source is placed inside the body. An important term in brachytherapy is remote afterloading. And the various atoms which we use in brachytherapy are iodine 125, cobalt 60, and iridium 192. Next is systemic radiotherapy. For example, we use iodine 131 for papillary thyroid carcinoma. In this case, the radioactive agent is injected intravenously. Next is stereotactic radiotherapy. In this case, we do stereotactic radiosurgery. For example, we use cobalt based stereotactic radiosurgery in the form of gamma knife. to operate AV malformations of brain. We also use CyberKnife to operate elsewhere in the body. Stereotactic radiotherapy is also useful in stage 1 lung cancer. Now let us discuss about radiosensitizers and radioprotectors. As the name indicates, radiosensitizers are agents that prime a particular tissue to make it more radiosensitive. For example, hyperbaric oxygen and metronidazole. Radioprotectors are agents that protect the tissues from the effects of free radicals. Examples include N-acetylcysteine, amifostine, and potassium iodide. Now let us discuss about radiosensitive and radioresistant tumors. Radiosensitive tumors include seminoma and Wilms tumor. There are also other radiosensitive tumors like Ewing's tumor, lymphoma, and multiple myeloma. Now let us discuss about radioresistant tumors. These include osteosarcoma, melanoma, pancreatic cancer, and hepatocellular carcinoma. Now let us discuss about radioactive iodine uptake. There is increased radioactive iodine uptake in case of Graves and endemic iodine deficiency, whereas there is decreased radioactive iodine uptake in case of subacute thyroiditis. Okay, now let us discuss about nuclear medicine or radionuclide imaging. An important equipment in nuclear medicine is gamma camera. It is also known as scintillation camera or Anger camera. An important instrument used in nuclear medicine is SPECT, which stands for Single Photon Emission Computed Tomography. We use technetium 99M in SPECT. It produces gamma rays of 140 kilo electron volt and its half-life is 6 hours. Now let us discuss about PET, which is positron emission tomography. In this case, we use 18-fluorodeoxyglucose. It is based on the principle that tumor cells have a high metabolic rate, so the FDG gets trapped within the malignant cells, and this can be detected using gamma cameras. It is also important to remember cases where there will be false positive PET, that is, the cells may not be malignant but they will be positive in PET. This can occur in case of brown adipose tissue. Now let us discuss systemic radionuclide imaging, that is the applications of nuclear medicine in various systems. In a renal system, we use technetium DMSA. DMSA stands for dimercaptosuccinic acid. It is used to detect structural or anatomic abnormalities of kidney. It is also used to detect ectopic kidney and renal scars. We use technetium DTPA, which is diethylene triamine pentaacetate, for measuring GFR. We use technetium MAG3, which is mercaptoacetyl triglycerin, for measuring glomerular filtration. It is basically functional evaluation of kidney. For renovascular hypertension, we use captopril TTPA scan. This is useful for renovascular hypertension. However, the gold standard investigation in renovascular hypertension is invasive renal angiography. Okay, now let us discuss about uses of nuclear medicine in cardiac system. We use technetium 99M stannous pyrophosphate for infarct scintigraphy, that is to detect infarction. Infarct will appear as hot spot in technetium 99M stannous pyrophosphate scan. We also use technetium 99M RBCs for functional assessment of ventricles. Now let us discuss the applications of nuclear medicine in gastrointestinal tract. We use technetium 99M sulfur colloid to detect active bleeding. We use technetium 99M RBCs to detect intermittent bleeding, and we use technetium 99M pertecnate scan for diagnosing Meckel's diverticulum. We can diagnose ectopic spleen using technetium 99M heat damaged RBCs. Now let us discuss the applications of nuclear medicine in musculoskeletal system. We use technetium 99M MDP we use technetium 99M MDP, which stands for methyl diphosphonate. This can be used in bone scan. In bone scan, we will have hot spots and cold spots. A cold spot in bone scan can be seen in case of multiple myeloma, whereas a hot spot in bone scan can be seen in case of avascular necrosis and fibrous dysplasia. Remember, in multiple myeloma, there is no osteoblastic activity, so there will be cold spot in bone scan. Now let us discuss the uses of radionuclides in neck imaging. Remember, iodine 127 is the stable isotope and it is not used. Iodine 123 is used in functional scan of thyroid. Iodine 124 is used in PET scan. For imaging thyroid, we can also use technetium 99M pertecnate scan. For imaging stroke, we use technetium 99M HMPAO, which is hexamethyl propylene amine oxide. This is used for cerebral perfusion imaging. For neuroendocrine tumors, we use gallium 68 Dotatoc PET. This is used for neuroendocrine tumors. Moving on to systemic radiology, first let us see about chest imaging. The best X-ray view for chest is PA view. However, for imaging the right lung, the best view is left anterior oblique view. For imaging middle lobe pathologies, we use lordotic view. Remember, lordotic view is for middle lobe pathologies. Okay, now let us discuss some important concepts in chest imaging. Silhouette sign. It is basically obliteration of right cardiac border. It is seen in pathologies of lingula or right middle lobe. Bulging fissure sign. This is seen in Klebsiella pneumonia. In case of lung abscess, we will have air fluid level. The most common site of lung abscess is superior segment of right lower lobe. Monod sign will be seen in aspergilloma. pneumococcal can be seen in Staph aureus pneumonia. In case of bronchiolitis, we will have tree in bud appearance. Air bronchogram is an imaging finding. It means that we will have dark bronchi and there will be white opacification of surrounding alveoli. This finding is seen in hyaline membrane disease, pulmonary edema and consolidation. Water lily sign or Camelot sign is seen in hydrated lung. Okay, now let us discuss about lung collapse. In case of right upper lobe collapse, we will have golden S sign. In case of left upper lobe collapse, we will have Luftschichel sign. Now let us discuss imaging findings in pleural effusion. The best X-ray view to detect pleural effusion is lateral decubitus. The investigation of choice for pleural effusion is ultrasonography. Split pleura sign is seen in empyema. Now let us discuss about pneumothorax. The best view to detect pneumothorax is PA view in full expiration. Deep sulcus sign can be seen in pneumothorax in supine view. In case of tension pneumothorax, the mediastinum will be shifted to the opposite side. Other findings in pneumothorax include hypertranslucency and collapse of ipsilateral lung. In case of USG, we will find barcode sign or stratosphere sign in pneumothorax. Remember, normally in M mode USG, we will see seashore sign of lung, whereas in case of pneumothorax, we will see barcode or stratosphere sign. Now let us discuss about pleural plaques or pleural calcifications. These can be seen in asbestosis, also in old hemothorax and healed empyema. Popcorn calcification can be seen in pulmonary hamartoma. Eggshell calcification can be seen in sarcoidosis, silicosis and post-radiation lymphoma. In case of TB, the primary lung parenchymal finding is consolidation. Now let us discuss about pneumomediastinum. In this case, we will find angel wing or spinnaker sail sign. Now let us discuss about lung tumors. The investigation of choice for lung tumors is CT scan, except in case of Pancoast tumor. In case of Pancoast tumor, the investigation of choice is MRI. Now let us discuss some investigation of choice with respect to chest imaging. For interstitial lung disease and bronchiectasis, the investigation of choice is HRCT. In case of bronchiectasis, we will find signet ring appearance. To detect calcification, or for solitary pulmonary nodule, and for malignancy, the investigation of choice is CT. Remember, in case of Pancoast tumor or superior sulcus tumor, the investigation of choice is MRI. In case of bronchoalveolar carcinoma, which is also known as adenocarcinoma in situ, we will find consolidation. Now let us discuss about lung metastasis. In case of lung metastasis, we will find cannonball appearance. Now let us discuss about pulmonary embolism. The investigation of choice is CT angiography. When the person is pregnant, we can use ventilation perfusion scan. Now let us discuss some important chest X-ray findings in case of pulmonary embolism. We can see Pallas sign and Westermarck sign. Other named signs in chest imaging are comet tail sign, which can be seen in round atelectasis, and in case of pneumonectomy, that is when you remove a lung, you can see opacification of hemithorax. Now let us discuss about sarcoidosis. In case of stage 0 sarcoidosis, there will be normal chest X-ray. In case of stage 1 sarcoidosis, we will find hilar or mediastinal node enlargement only. In case of stage 2 sarcoidosis, we will find node enlargement plus parenchymal disease. In case of stage 3 sarcoidosis, we will find only parenchymal disease, and stage 4 is end stage lung disease, that is there will be pulmonary fibrosis. Now some important thing to remember regarding pulmonary edema are, we will find Kerley lines. Kerley lines can be curly A lines and curly B lines. Curly A lines radiate from hilum of lung, whereas curly B lines are perpendicular to pleural surface. In pulmonary edema, we will also see bat wing appearance. Now moving on to cardiovascular system imaging, let us discuss some important signs in cardiovascular system imaging. First, we have to know what forms the right cardiac border. This is formed by superior vena cava, inferior vena cava and right atrium. The right ventricle is the most anterior chamber of the heart. Now let us discuss about pericardial effusion. In this case, we will see money bag or leather bottle or flask appearance of the heart. In case of lateral chest X-ray, we will see Oreo cookie appearance. The investigation of choice for pericardial effusion is echocardiography. In case of tetralogy of Fallot, we will see boot-shaped heart. This appearance is because of upturned cardiac apex due to right ventricular hypertrophy. This is also known as Cour-en-Sabot. In case of Epstein's anomaly, we will see box-shaped heart. This is because of enlarged right atrium in Epstein's anomaly. In case of transposition of great arteries, we will see egg on string appearance. This occurs in uncorrected transposition of great arteries. In case of constrictive pericarditis, we will see egg in cup appearance. Egg in cup appearance is also seen in renal papillary necrosis in urology. In case of atrial septal defect, when we do fluoroscopy or live X-ray, we will find hilar dance which occurs due to vigorous pulmonary artery pulsations. In case of coarctation of aorta, we will see inferior rib notching. This rib notching can also be seen in superior vena cava obstruction and neurofibromatosis. This inferior rib notching seen in coarctation of aorta is called as Rosler sign. In coarctation of aorta, we will also see figure of 3 sign. In case of persistent truncus arteriosus, we will see sitting duck heart. In case of total anomalous pulmonary venous connection, we will see snowman appearance of heart, which is also known as figure of 8 appearance or cottage loaf appearance. In case of partial anomalous pulmonary venous connection, we will see scimitar sign. We can do thallium scan for myocardial ischemia. If it is a reversible MI, there will be cold appearance on exercise, whereas it will be normal on rest. Whereas if it is irreversible MI, it will be cold. If we do USG of saphenofemoral junction, we will see Mickey Mouse appearance. This is nothing but we will see femoral artery here, great saphenous vein here, and femoral vein here. This resembles Mickey Mouse, so this is called as Mickey Mouse sign. This can be observed when we do USG of saphenofemoral junction. Now let us discuss about orthopedic imaging. First, let us see about rickets. It occurs due to deficiency of vitamin D. In this case, there will be widening, cupping and fraying of metaphysis. There will also be widening of joint spaces. The earliest radiological feature of rickets is loss of provisional zone of calcification. Now let us discuss about scurvy. It occurs due to deficiency of vitamin C, which leads to defective deposition of collagen in the bone. The radiological features include Wimberger epiphysis, in which case there will be sclerotic rim around the epiphysis. There will be white line of Frenkel, which is dense zone of calcification at the growing metaphysis. There will also be Trummer-Fields zone of rarefication, which is area of lucency beneath the zone of metaphyseal calcification. There will also be Pelkan spurs, which are metaphyseal spurs. There will be pencil thin cortex and ground glass appearance of bones in case of scurvy. Now let us discuss about hyperparathyroidism. In this case, there will be subperiosteal cortical resorption of middle phalanx in the second and third fingers. There will be loss of lamina dura. There will be formation of Brown's tumor, and there will be salt and pepper appearance of skull. It is important to know about metaphyseal bands. These occur due to increased bone deposition and decreased osteoclastic remodeling. They can be seen in scurvy, secondary hyperparathyroidism, vitamin D intoxication, and congenital syphilis. In all these conditions, we can see metaphyseal bands. Now let us discuss about Erlenmeyer flask deformity. In this case, there will be expansion of distal ends of femur. This can be seen in Gaucher disease thalassemia, leukemia, and osteopetrosis. In all these conditions, we can see Erlen-Meyer flask deformity, which is expansion of distal ends of femur. Now let us discuss about imaging of bone tumors. In case of unicameral bone cyst, we can find fallen fragment sign. In case of osteosarcoma, we can find sun-ray appearance and Codman triangle. In case of Ewing sarcoma, we can see onion peel appearance of diaphysis. In case of giant cell tumor, we can see soap bubble appearance. It is also important to know about Donald's sign. This is seen during radiotracer uptake. It can be seen in aneurysmal bone cyst and giant cell tumor. In this case, the radiotracer accumulates at the periphery of the lesion, whereas there is reactionary bone formation with little activity in the center. So it appears like a donut in case of aneurysmal bone cyst and giant cell tumor. Bone within bone appearance. This can be seen in sickle cell disease and Paget's disease. It is also important to know about scivora, which is nothing but spinal cord injury without radiographical abnormality. This is seen in children, and the investigation of choice for scivora is MRI. Now let us discuss about skeletal dysplasias. First let us see about achondroplasia. It is the most common cause of congenital dwarfism. The radiological signs include champagne glass pelvis, trident hand, and bullet shaped vertebra. Now let us discuss about osteogenesis imperfecta. There are many types of osteogenesis imperfecta. However, the most lethal type among them is type 2. In osteogenesis imperfecta, the patient will have blue sclera. Skull X-ray in osteogenesis imperfecta will show Vomian bones, which are nothing but intrasutural bone ossicles. In osteogenesis imperfecta, we will have multiple diaphyseal fractures. An important differential diagnosis of osteogenesis imperfecta is child abuse or battered baby syndrome. Remember, in case of osteogenesis imperfecta, it will be multiple diaphyseal fractures, whereas in case of child abuse or battered baby syndrome, we will have multiple metaphyseal fractures. Now let us discuss about mucopolysaccharidosis or MPS. In case of Hurler syndrome, which is mucopolysaccharidosis type 1, we will have mental retardation, hepatosplenomegaly, and cloudy cornea as clinical features. Radiological features include J-shaped sella and thickened calvaria. We will also have oar-shaped ribs. Remember, Hurler syndrome occurs due to deficiency of alpha-L hydroxylase, which leads to accumulation of heparan sulfate and dermatan sulfate. Now let us discuss about neuroimaging. Physiological calcification can be seen in pineal gland, habenacular commissure, and dura mater. Calcification can occur in basal ganglia in the following conditions. In case of hypoparathyroidism, in case of hypothyroidism, and in carbon monoxide poisoning. Tumors which show calcification include craniopharyngioma, astrocytoma, and oligodendroglioma. Bracket calcification occurs in corpus callosum lipoma. So these are the important things to remember regarding calcification in central nervous system. Now let us discuss about cerebellopontine angle tumors. These include acoustic schwannoma, arachnoid cyst, meningioma, and epidermoid cyst. This can be remembered by the mnemonic same. Now let us discuss about meningioma in detail. Skull X-ray shows calcification and hyperostosis. There will also be dural tails. Now let us discuss about acoustic neuroma or schwannoma. It is the most common tumor in cerebellopontine angle. There will be ice cream on cone appearance. Bilateral acoustic neuroma or vestibular schwannoma is associated with neurofibromatosis type 2. Now let us discuss about pituitary adenomas. They are called as pituitary microadenomas when the size is less than 1 cm, and they are called as macroadenomas when the size is more than 1 cm. Imaging findings include snowman appearance or figure of 8 appearance. Now let us discuss about craniopharyngioma. It is a calcified lesion. It occurs in the suprasellar region and it usually occurs in children. Remember, craniopharyngioma is derived from Rathke cleft. There are two types of craniopharyngioma. They are adamantinomatous, which occurs in kids, and papillary craniopharyngioma, which occurs in adults. Now let us discuss about pilocytic astrocytoma. It is the most common primary brain tumor in children. It is infratentorial. Remember, brain tumors in children are usually infratentorial except craniopharyngioma, which is supratentorial. Now let us discuss about glioblastoma multiforme. It is also called as butterfly glioma. It has a very bad prognosis. Now let us discuss about medulloblastoma. Remember, medulloblastoma is an intraventricular tumor. It is in fact the most common primary malignant brain tumor in kids. It is basically a small round blue cell tumor. Now let us discuss some important radiological signs. Salt and pepper sign is seen in head and neck paragangliomas. Remember, in case of hyperparathyroidism, there will be salt and pepper appearance of skull or pepper pot appearance. In case of Paget's disease, there will be cotton wool appearance of skull. Now let us discuss about Joubert syndrome. It is an autosomal recessive disorder. In this case, there will be cerebellar vermis hypoplasia. The named radiological sign is molar tooth sign in MRI. Remember, molar tooth sign is seen in Joubert syndrome. Now let us discuss about Haller-Warden syndrome. It is also the full name is Haller-Warden-Spatz syndrome. It is also an autosomal recessive disorder. It is basically a pantothenate kinase associated neurodegeneration. The named sign in this case is eye of tiger sign in MRI. Remember, eye of tiger sign is seen in Haller-Walden's syndrome, whereas Malatode sign is seen in Joubert syndrome. Now let us discuss about von Hippel-Lindau syndrome. The CNS manifestations include hemangioma of cerebellum, which appears as hypointense lesion in posterior fossa. This indicates hemangiosarcoma of cerebellum, which is seen in von Hippel-Lindau syndrome. Now let us discuss about tuberous sclerosis. In this case, there will be calcified subependymal nodules. Remember, tuberous sclerosis, it is an autosomal dominant condition. The patient presents with seizures, hypopigmented macules and facial angiofibromas, and the radiological findings will be calcified subependymal nodules. Now let us discuss about Sturge-Weber syndrome. In this case, there will be port wine stain and tram track calcification. Now let us discuss about Dandy-Walker malformation. In this case, there will be a large cystic area in posterior fossa. Lemon sign is seen in spina bifida, which is also a developmental deformity. Now let us discuss about some important things in myelography. It is an imaging investigation for spinal cord. In case of intradural extramedullary tumor, there will be widening of contrast filled space in myelography. In case of intramedullary tumor, there will be trouser leg appearance. When there is elevated intracranial tension in kids, the earliest sign is sutural diastasis, that is separation of sutures. Now let us discuss about Huntington's disease. In this case, radiology will show bilateral caudate nucleus atrophy. In case of Wilson's disease, axial flare MRI will show face of giant panda appearance. In case of multiple sclerosis, the demyelinating plaques will show Dawson's fingers in flare MRI. Now let us discuss some developmental deformities. In case of A lobar holoprosencephaly, which is failure of development of forebrain, there will be pancake brain sign. In case of lissencephaly, which occurs due to defective neuronal migration, there will be figure of 8 sign. In case of schizencephaly, there will be unilateral or bilateral clefts in radiology. Now let us discuss about progressive supranuclear palsy. It is a Parkinson plus syndrome. It shows hummingbird sign or penguin sign in MRI. In case of central pontine myelinosis, there will be owl eye sign. In Parkinson disease, there will be absent swallowtail sign. In case of neurocysticercosis, there will be cyst with dot sign. Now let us discuss various ring enhancing lesions in CT. These include tuberculoma, toxoplasmosis and brain abscess. Now let us discuss about Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease. There are two types. They are variant CJD and sporadic CJD. In case of variant CJD, MRI will show hockey stick appearance. In case of sporadic CJD, MRI will show cortical ribbon sign. Now let us discuss about Alexander's disease. It is a rare disease in children which presents with delayed milestones. It can be diagnosed using T2 MRI, which shows hyperintensity in bilateral frontal white matter. In case of multisystem atrophy type C, there will be hot cross bun sign. Now let us discuss about various head trauma findings. In case of extradural hemorrhage, which is also known as epidural hemorrhage, there will be lens-shaped hematoma. It occurs due to bleeding from middle meningeal artery. In case of subdural hemorrhage, there will be crescent-shaped hematoma. It occurs due to bleeding from bridging cortical veins. In case of subarachnoid hemorrhage, there will be blood in basal cistern. Clinical features of subarachnoid hemorrhage include thunderclap headache. CSF in subarachnoid hemorrhage will show xanthochromia. Remember, the most common cause of subarachnoid hemorrhage is trauma, which is more common than ruptured berry aneurysm. One important thing to remember regarding hemorrhage is acute hemorrhage will be hyperintense, that is, it will be white. Subacute will be isodense or grey, whereas chronic hemorrhage will be hypodense or black. Remember, the most common site for hypertensive bleed is basal ganglia and putamen. This is the most common site for hypertensive bleed. Now let us discuss about diffuse axonal injury. This can't be picked up in CT. This can usually be picked up by MRI, and the investigation of choice is GRE or SWI sequence MRI. In MRI, there will be multiple small hypointense lesions at corticomedullary junction and basal ganglia in case of diffuse axonal injury. Now let us discuss about pneumocephalus, which can also occur due to trauma. It is basically air inside the cranial cavity. In case of tension pneumocephalus, we will find Mount Fuji sign. Now let us discuss about stroke imaging. The earliest imaging modality which can detect ischemia is diffusion weighted MRI. In case of cortical venous sinus thrombosis, we will find empty delta sign. In Moyamoya disease, which is usually seen in children. We will see puff of smoke appearance. In vein of Galen malformation, we will see high output congestive cardiac failure plus hydrocephalus. Now let us discuss about imaging of a gastrointestinal tract. First let us discuss about pneumoperitoneum. The best investigation to detect pneumoperitoneum is CT scan. Among abdominal X-ray, the best view is left lateral decubitus view. Now let us discuss the various signs that can be seen in abdominal X-ray. In case of pneumoperitoneum, we can see football sign, cupola sign and falciform ligament sign in pneumoperitoneum in case of abdominal X-ray. Now let us discuss about pseudopneumoperitoneum. It is also known as Child-Diatti sign. In this case, there is false impression of air because the intestine is present between liver and diaphragm. Now let us discuss about duodenal atresia. In case of duodenal atresia, we will see double bubble sign in abdominal X-ray. Now let us discuss about midgut volvulus. In this case, we will see corkscrew sign in upper GI series and whirlpool sign in CT. Now let us discuss about sigmoid volvulus. In this case, we will see coffee bean sign in abdominal X-ray and bird of prey sign in case of barium enema. Now let us discuss about intersusception. In this case, USG will show target sign, which is also known as donut sign or bullseye sign. We will also see pseudo kidney sign in intersusception. Now let us discuss about congenital diaphragmatic hernia. In this case, X-ray will show bowel loops in thorax. There will also be associated pulmonary hypoplasia in congenital diaphragmatic hernia. Now let us discuss about inflammatory bowel disease. As we all know, there are two types of inflammatory bowel disease. One is Crohn's disease and the other is ulcerative colitis. In case of Crohn's disease, the earliest radiologic change is aphthous ulcer, which can be visualized using barium small bowel follow through. Other signs in case of Crohn's disease are cobblestone appearance, string sign of Cantor. The investigation of choice for diagnosing Crohn's disease is CT scan, which shows Coombs sign and creeping fat sign. In case of ulcerative colitis, the earliest change on barium enema is granular appearance of mucosa. In chronic ulcerative colitis, we will find lead pipe colon. Now let us discuss about various findings in barium swallow. It can be used to diagnose esophageal web, which can be seen in a condition called Plummerson-Vinson syndrome or Patterson-Brown-Kelly syndrome. This predisposes to squamous cell carcinoma of hypopharynx. Now let us discuss about Zenker's diverticulum. It is also known as pharyngeal pouch. It is a pulsion pseudodiverticulum. It is herniation of mucosa or submucosa through Killian triangle. The investigation of choice for Zenker's diverticulum is barium swallow. Now let us discuss about Acaricia cardia. In this case, we will see bird beak sign. In manometry, in case of achalasia cardia, we'll see incomplete lower esophageal sphincter relaxation and high resting lower esophageal sphincter pressure. Now let us discuss about CA esophagus. In this case, we will see rat tail appearance. In case of esophageal leiomyoma, we will see semilunar filling defect. In case of tracheoesophageal fistula, barium swallow is contraindicated. In this case, we use dianosyl dye. Barium swallow can also be used to diagnose mucosal ring at squamocolumnar junction. If the ring is present at squamocolumnar junction, it is called as B ring or Schatzy ring. If the ring is present proximal to the B ring, it is called as A ring. So A ring is present proximal to B ring. In case of reflex esophagitis, we will see feline esophagus, which is also known as esophageal shiver. In case of diffuse esophageal spasm, we will find corkscrew esophagus. The gold standard investigation for diagnosing diffuse esophageal spasm is manometry. In case of perforation peritonitis and esophageal perforation, barium is contraindicated. In this case, we will use gastrografin or iohexol dye. Now let us discuss about gastric ulcer. There are two types of gastric ulcers. They are benign gastric ulcer and malignant gastric ulcer. In case of benign gastric ulcer, radiological feature is Hampton's line. It is basically a faint line at the base of ulcer due to undermining mucosa. In case of malignant gastric ulcer, we'll find Karman meniscus sign. In this case, there will be convex margin towards the lumen. To assess the depth of gastric cancer, we use endoluminal USG. In case of colonic diverticuli, we will see sawtooth sign because of the multiple diverticuli. In case of CA colon, we will see apple core deformity. In case of intersusception, barium enema will show coiled spring sign. Now let us discuss about congenital hypertrophic pyloric stenosis. In this case, we will see double track sign or diamond sign. The investigation of choice for congenital hypertrophic pyloric stenosis is ultrasonogram. Now let us discuss about pseudomembranous colitis. In this case, CT will show accordion sign, which is also known as concertina sign. In case of ileocecal TB, there are various signs like string sign, pulled up cecum, gooseneck ileus and Fleischner sign. All these signs can be seen in ileocecal TB. Remember, string sign can also be seen in hypertrophic pyloric stenosis and Crohn's disease. In case of Hirschsprung disease, there will be agangliosis in distal colon and rectum. So there will be dilatation of the distal colon. Now let us discuss about cholelithiasis. In this case, the investigation of choice is USG. Abdominal X-ray will show Mercedes-Benz sign. If you find air within the gallbladder, it is suggestive of emphysematous cholecystitis. Now let us discuss about Kerales disease. Kerales disease is nothing but type 5 choledochal cyst. It shows central dot sign. Now let us discuss about acute pancreatitis. The investigation of choice for acute pancreatitis is high-dose CECT. The various signs seen in case of acute pancreatitis are preserved renal halo, colon cutoff sign, and sentinel loop sign. In case of chronic pancreatitis, MRCP will show chain of lakes appearance. Now let us discuss about CA pancreas. In case of periampullary carcinoma, we will see double duct sign in CT or MRI. In case of carcinoma of head of pancreas, barium study will show Frostberg reverse 3 sign. Coming to imaging of spleen, the following signs can be seen in splenic rupture in case of abdominal X-ray: obliteration of splenic outline, loss of psoas outline, and elevation of left hemidiaphragm. All these can be seen in case of splenic rupture. In case of serous cystadenoma of pancreas, we can find spongy appearance with central sunburst calcification. In case of worms in biliary tree, ERCP will show linear filling defects. In case of biliary atresia, USG will show neonatal triangular cord sign. Now let us discuss about nutcracker syndrome. In this case, the left renal vein is compressed between superior mesenteric artery and aorta, and it can be detected using CECT. Now let us discuss about imaging of genitourinary tract. First let us discuss about urolithiasis. In case of stones, the investigation of choice is a non-contrast CT. However, some stones like the stones caused by indinavir are radiolucent. Now let us discuss about nephrocalcinosis. Nephrocalcinosis is nothing but multifocal calcification in the renal parenchyma. There are two types of nephrocalcinosis. They are cortical nephrocalcinosis and medullary nephrocalcinosis. Cortical nephrocalcinosis can be seen in Alport syndrome, hemolytic uremic syndrome, graft rejection, and chronic glomerulonephritis, whereas medullary nephrocalcinosis can be seen in distal renal tubular acidosis, medullary sponge kidney, and sarcoidosis. In case of emphysematous pyelonephritis, we can see gas in CT. Now let us discuss about various renal masses. First, let us see about renal angiomyolipoma. In this case, there will be focal lesion within the kidney with fat density. The clinical features include back pain, vomiting, and hypotension. The classic feature is old onion peel appearance on CT. Now let us discuss about renal cell carcinoma. The investigation of choice for renal cell carcinoma is CCT. However, to detect renal vein or inferior vena cava invasion, the investigation of choice is MRI. Now let us discuss about transitional cell carcinoma. In case of transitional cell carcinoma of ureter, we will have goblet or champagne glass appearance. This occurs due to chronic focal dilation by an intraluminal mass. Now let us discuss about renal cysts. For classifying renal cysts, we use Bosniak classification. In Bosniak classification, class 1 is simple cyst, whereas class 4 is 100% malignant. So class 4 always requires a partial or total nephrectomy. In case of benign prostatic hyperplasia, we will see fish hook ureter or J-shaped ureter. In case of fibromuscular dysplasia, we will see string of beads appearance. In case of renal scarring, we use technetium 99M DMSA scan, which is a radionuclide imaging. For testicular torsion, we use Doppler, which is the investigation of choice to detect testicular torsion. In case of neuroblastoma, the radiological findings include calcification, vascular encasement, and bony metastasis. Now let us discuss about MCDK, which is multicystic dysplastic kidney. In this case, if we do an intravenous pyelogram, we will see non-visualized kidney. Now let us discuss some other important findings in case of intravenous pyelogram. In case of polycystic kidney disease, we will see streaky appearance. In case of duplication of ureter, we will see drooping lily sign. In case of medullary sponge kidney, we will see bouquet of flowers appearance. In case of horseshoe kidney, we will see handshake sign. In case of genitourinary TB, the earliest radiological feature on IVP is moth-eaten calyx. Now let us discuss other features. In case of renal TB, we will see thimble bladder, and gold-fold appearance. The most sensitive investigation to detect renal TB is CT intravenous pyelogram. Okay, in case of autosomal dominant polycystic kidney disease, we will see Swiss cheese nephrogram, whereas in case of autosomal recessive polycystic kidney disease, we will see striated nephrogram. This striated nephrogram can also be seen in acute pyelonephritis and acute renal vein thrombosis. In case of acute ureteric obstruction, we will see dense persistent nephrogram. In case of renal papillary necrosis, we will see lobster claw sign. In case of pelvic abscess or pelvic hematoma, we'll see teardrop bladder. In case of schistosomiasis, we'll see densely calcified bladder which resembles fetal skull. Remember, schistosomiasis predisposes the patient for the development of squamous cell carcinoma of bladder. In case of neurogenic bladder, we will see Christmas tree appearance on cystogram. Now let us discuss about ureterocele. In this case, there is dilation at the uretrovesical junction. This causes cobra head or adder head appearance. In case of a retrocaval ureter, there will be right-sided fish hook appearance or right-sided fish hook ureter. This is because the right ureter hooks behind the inferior vena cava. In case of retroperitoneal fibrosis, IVP will show maiden waist deformity. Now let us discuss about vesicoureteric reflex. In this case, the investigation of choice is micturating cystourethrogram. Micturating cystourethrogram is also the investigation of choice for posterior urethral wall. Remember, posterior urethral wall can be detected using antenatal ultrasound. In this case, there will be keyhole appearance, which is also known as spinning top sign. Now let us discuss about trauma imaging. First, let us see about upper limb trauma. In case of posterior dislocation of shoulder, we will have light bulb sign, which is also known as tennis racket appearance. In case of luxatio erecta, there is inferior dislocation of shoulder, which will present with severe hyperabduction. Now let us discuss about supracondylar fracture. In this case, the most common nerve involved is anterior interosseous nerve, which is a branch of median nerve. This leads to pointing index finger. The most common complication of supracondylar fracture of humerus is malunion leading to cubitus, whereas a delayed complication of supracondylar fracture is myositis ossificans, which can be detected in X-rays. Now let us discuss about Colles fracture. Colles fracture occurs due to fall on an outstretched hand. It is fracture of distal third of radius with dorsal angulation. Now let us see about Smith's fracture. Smith's fracture occurs due to direct blow to dorsal forearm. That is, in this case, there is fracture of distal third of radius with volar angulation. Now let us discuss about Barton's fracture. Remember, Colles fracture and Smith's fracture both are extra-articular, whereas in case of Barton's fracture, it is intra-articular. It is basically intra-articular comminuted fracture of distal radius leading to dislocated radiocarpal joint. Now let us discuss about scapulolunate dislocation. In case of scapulolunate dislocation, we will see Terry Thomas sign or tooth gap sign between scaphoid and lunate. Now let us discuss about FAST. FAST stands for Focused Assessment with Sonography in Trauma. The first area which we scan in FAST is the pericardial area or the subxiphoid area. The other areas which we scan in FAST are the right upper quadrant, the left upper quadrant, and the suprapubic areas. EFAST stands for Extended FAST. It can be used to detect fluid in pleural cavity. So this is helpful in diagnosing pneumothorax or hemothorax. Now let us discuss some important concepts in lower limb trauma. In case of middle meniscus tear, we will see double PCL sign. PCL stands for posterior cruciate ligament. In middle meniscus tear, the middle meniscus comes anteroinferior to the PCL, mimicking a second smaller PCL. This is called as double PCL sign. Now let us discuss about avascular necrosis. The investigation of choice for detecting avascular necrosis is MRI, and the risk factor for developing avascular necrosis is the use of steroids. Now let us discuss about green stick fracture. Green stick fracture usually occurs in children. In this case, children have soft bones. So in green stick fracture, the outer cortex is broken. The inner cortex bends. This usually occurs in shaft of forearm bones. Now let us discuss about imaging in obstetrics and gynecology. We can use transvaginal ultrasonogram to detect gestational sac at 5 weeks of gestation. We can detect embryo with cardiac activity at 6 weeks of gestation. We can detect anencephaly using USG at around 10 to 12 weeks of gestation. Remember, anencephaly is the earliest detectable congenital malformation. In case of anencephaly, there will be frog eye appearance in USG. Remember, for performing TVS, we should have an empty bladder. Now let us discuss about twin pregnancy. In case of monochorionic diamniotic twins, we will have T sign, whereas in case of dichorionic diamniotic twins, we will have twin peak or lambda sign. Now let us discuss about developmental abnormalities in females. For detecting unicornuate uterus, we can use hysterosalpingogram. However, the investigation of choice for detecting congenital uterine anomaly is MRI. Now let us discuss a few points in radiotherapy with respect to OBG. For CA endometrium, we can use EBRT, which is external beam radiotherapy. Here the radioactive source is placed outside the body. Regarding radiosensitivity of the various organs in female genital tract, the most radiosensitive structure is ovary, followed by rectum, followed by bladder, and the least radiosensitive structure in female genital tract is vagina. In case of molar pregnancy, the investigation of choice is USG, and we will find snowstorm appearance in complete molar pregnancy in USG. This brings us to the end of this video. I know I have not included any images in this video. Also, I have not written down everything which I have said. So you can use this video as a semi-podcast. If you have any suggestions, please let me know in the comment section. For more such videos, please check out my playlists. If you like my videos, kindly subscribe. Your subscription will encourage me to make more videos. Thank you.